All right, now joining us on Tennis Channel Inside In, always a pleasure to catch up. We're doing this into December now, so a little off-season talk with Nico Pereira, former tennis pro, a lot of accomplishments, and also broadcaster and podcast host too. So Nico, you keep adding new skills to your arsenal, but welcome to the show.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me in. And at the closing of the year is always an interesting time to reflect on what happened and the results and what's coming. So it's a very juicy part of the year.
Yeah, we're getting ready for next year. There's a lot of drama, some good, some bad, some touching moments as well. But it is that period of reflection. I guess we can kind of start with, you lived this life, many moons ago. But is there a strategy for kind of attacking the off season? I know for some players, if they're able to, go to the exhibition route, that can be very financially successful. There's players that like to unplug, get away, and then also, you have to take that proper offseason and put the time in. So what was your strategy like attacking the short offseason?
Unfortunately, I didn't touch a tennis racket for like 2 months. But you see, that's where it got me. I think you got to know yourself. Some guys have paid dearly, the case of Rafa and Ruud when they did that tour of Latin America. Other guys barely have time to breathe with the year-end finals and the Davis Cup and a couple of exos. And then you blink and you already have to book the trip to wherever you start the year. Most likely, down under. But you have to know what works best for you. Some guys don't deal too well without having a racket in their hands. Others just physically try to get stronger. Others try to get leaner. There's so much information out there, so much good changes, positive changes that you can make that I guess they have very little time. You have to practically do it on the run, the season being so long. And that's one of the things we're trying to work on. Maybe trying to shorten the season a little bit, but these guys just keep wanting more and more. They have to play 20 events in case you play the year-end finals. That counts as an extra event nowadays. So with the Exos and the 2-week 1000s, they're playing 4 or 5 more weeks than they were. So you saw it at the end of the season. They are exhausted, man and woman. So you really have to pace yourself.
The physicality side's huge too, especially in the men's game. And you're starting to see players outwardly say, look, it's not even about tennis. It's not about practicing on parts of your game, Nico. It's about just getting physically stronger and being built to go, especially those players that are trying to, like everybody is, but the players that really believe they can have Grand Slam success, a best of 5 major, a best of 5 match, and having to go 5, 6, 7 of them. It takes a lot out of you. So I think the physical side, again, part of it is, as you know, being lucky that you're healthy going into the offseason, which isn't the case for many.
Well, you're talking that the top guys in the world are winning around 70 matches. Maybe they lose 14. So with, give or take 100 matches, that's an average of 1 match every 3.5 days. That's a tough one. So you have to decide if you're going to peak in the slams, which was what the guys that consider themselves capable of winning them try and do. And then you have to be realistic and see if you can sustain that level. At what level are you in? If you're outside the top 32 where you want to get seated, then you want to maybe prepare for a longer season and not peak so much, take advantage of those weeks of the 250s and 500. So it's fascinating. And you can sit with each player and they're all going through these calculations.
I just want to, you brought something up there. The top players winning 70 matches. Taylor Fritz, who had an unbelievable year, pointed out how absurd it was. This is a pro, an elite pro, saying in 2006, Roger Federer's year, 92-5. So he won 90 matches, and there were still best of 5 Masters finals back then. So that's just another absurd Federer stat.
But nowadays it's so much more physical, I think. These guys are just wailing on the ball at each shot. The conditioning is just out of the realm of possibilities. If you think 20 years back, these guys are above and beyond.
Right. One last thing on the physicality side, you can answer this. I haven't really had it on this show, but and for a novice like myself or people that listen that never played at the elite level, the tennis ball issue, how big of an issue do you think it really is on the physicality and on the injuries? Because I know that there's players that have been more vocal than others. Some of it is timing, and some of it is legit injuries that are happening. So, where are we at with the tennis ball injury, and is it as big a problem as some of the players are suggesting?
I think it's a big problem for some guys and not a big problem for others. Some guys are weaker in the elbow, shoulder area. The type of stroke that they hit.
Yeah,
It is certainly an issue, and Sasha Zverev did a remarkable job in going to the companies and finding out that they're just using a lower grade of rubber to make the balls
mm,
to make them cheaper. So that's a biggie. So ATP is working on some standards there. I know as we speak they're going through it. It's a big topic in the December 10th
yeah,
meeting that's going to be the last one before Australia. So I know the players are concerned, and rightfully so. They are at an excellent physical, and mental, and technical level. They deserve the best
yeah.
equipment out there in order to help them not get injured.
Yeah, they've reached the pinnacle of their career, getting to the very top level they're expecting, and I think it's understandable. They're expecting the very best to be along with that. Well, the bummer news that I wanted to mention, we can't avoid it on this show. Unfortunate the situation with Iga Swiatek that came out. So it's a month suspension, essentially 3 weeks provisional. And just going through the data, it was a contaminated substance, melatonin, had traces of trimethazine in there. Says it was contaminated, was able to figure out where it came from. So there's a lot of layers, obviously, with this. The number one point being, and I know you can start in any directions, based on what's on the surface, Nico, this was not a player of quote unquote doping to get an advantage. I think most reasonable people can start there, though there is a debate, there's discussion. I think it's fair that, the protocols, maybe the standard that we're having here is a little hard to follow. So that's the 2 points. I don't call Iga a cheater, but also saying these standards are a little messy, at least from the outside, to follow what punishments are dished out to who.
Not only that, the month in the off season is a bluff. It's
Yeah.
something that I think she's a great champion. I'm a big
Yeah.
fan. If the doctors say that is the case, which is what we all have read, so be it. But the coincidence that the two number ones at one point or
I
another
know.
this year are the ones that got away, so to speak. It's a tough one to swallow for people not scratching beyond the surface. So it's not a good look for our sport.
Right.
I believe that they're justified positives in both
Right.
cases. But what happened with Simona Halep is just not fair. What happened to Nico Jarry is just not fair.
Yeah.
And that you just said it. It's protocols. It's being uniform and sending a clear message that it does not matter the ranking, because the test is only a number. It doesn't say a name, and it's only developed. It's only discovered a month later.
Yeah.
We have to trust the system. Unfortunately, the system, has not been giving us too much to go on of late. But for the game, is certainly not a good look.
So I had a few things. One being, the fact that nobody knew about it, right? That's something that I'm not sure should be the mark going forward. She was resting, she said, and then, during the Asian swing, it was no, this was a provisional suspension. So there's a part of this reaction that is a little visceral because she was essentially suspended, similar to Yannick Sinner, where he knew there was something up, but no one knew about it. That's number one. Number two is a sad reality of resources, right? She was able to get a private lab to look into this. And again, not faulting her. Someone at her stature with her resources, we'd all probably do the same thing. But you look at obviously what happened with Simona Halep, Nico Jarry, unfair. Also, Tara Moore, the British player who isn't as ranked as high and doesn't have the resources, wasn't able to do that. That's a bit unfair as well. And then I also kind of look at it, Nico, too, the sense of the drug testing as a whole. The objective, I'm not sure we're there where we should be. And I think they've even acknowledged it too. Like we're testing for such minuscule things at this point. I'm wondering if that's the best way to go forward too. So there's a lot. This is a complex situation, but yeah, it seems unfortunately like there's different strokes for different folks. I would like to see some uniformity going forward. And again, I'm not presuming that she did anything, guilty other than having a contaminated substance, which by rule results in a short suspension.
Listen, these guys are CEOs of multi-million-dollar enterprises. They
Yeah.
have somebody by their side checking everything that goes
Yeah.
into their mouth. It's just proven too expensive, and to have a stain like that on your record in a sport that
Right.
has a history and the tradition that tennis has.
Yeah.
We earned it the hard way. So
Yeah.
I'm the one. I'm the last one that wants to see this happening, but we have to address it for the credibility.
We do. The
For-
sleeping pill, the fact that it was, in a sleeping pill to melatonin, like that's, I know, the
yeah,
lifestyle is there's a lot of tennis players that are traveling time zones and needing to sleep. So we'll monitor going forward. Yeah, we will see where it goes. On the brighter side, though, Nico, there was a feel good moment this week. Juan Martin Del Potro had his goodbye match, his exhibition in Buenos Aires with Novak Djokovic. Can we just start too with the fact that I want to mention this, Nico? Novak just being a genuine guy and a genuine friend, like doing this for his friend and being able to, go down there in the shorter off season, but shows you what he thinks of Juan Martin Del Potro, shows what the game thought of Juan Martin, that Novak was the one that made this sacrifice and gave him this incredible moment.
That is one of the biggest solids I've seen ever.
Yeah.
I tell you, hats off to Novak. You have to feel for Juan Martin. He didn't have the idyllic career that his playing opponent on that particular day had, and he feels he should have gotten more. But listen, he'll come to terms with it. He also lost his father in a tragic way not too long ago, say maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It has not been pretty, but strong, tough always comes your way. I'm sure he'll come out the other side stronger. But it was a beautiful scene to see Abby Sabatini also taking a part, and just a great champion in Juan Martin. We're very proud of him in Latin America, and certainly considering what you mentioned, the little time off, Novak from Abu Dhabi, I think he was traveled to Argentina, and who knows where he is now, but it speaks volumes for the character of both guys and the respect that is between them.
Yeah, we all know Juan Martin Del Potro's career was snake bitten in a lot of ways, didn't have the longevity in the moments at the top that a lot of us would have liked. I do think there's a lot about tennis that we can debate, but one of the things I think is beautiful is they do tributes and goodbyes like maybe no other sport when you get to say goodbye in your home court, home country. And the fact that this is a Latin American guy, we've talked about this before, not as many chances to play in front of his fans. I'm glad he had that moment, even if it was an exhibition, to play in Argentina and for them to show the love and affection that they had in him, because it goes without saying for our younger listeners, this was an idol for a lot of people, not just Latin Americans. What he brought to the game, winning the U.S. Open, pushing Novak and pushing Rafa and pushing Roger, like when they were at their peak, he was giving them trouble. He meant a lot to so many people. So I was just touched by the fact that tennis can say goodbye to a proper legend in the game in a lot of ways, and Juan Martin Del Potro.
I have a feeling he'll be around, for a long, long time. He loves the game, and once the morning period goes by, I'm sure he'll be a good ambassador for the game anywhere in the world, not only Latin America. But yes, it's always a feel good moment to see him doing that with the biggest star in our game today, and the winningest player ever. So I think it was very deserving of the situation for him to live it like that in his home country, and hopefully it can give him a little bit of closure.
We got more Nico Pereira here on Tennis Channel Insight and catching up in the offseason. Novak Djokovic, part of that Juan Martin Del Potro goodbye tribute exhibition, but he also gave an interview where for the first time, Nico, he opened up about the Andy Murray partnership that really caught all of us off guard in the offseason, that decision. And we had our theories. I had my theory, but to hear Novak say, look, I was the one that approached Andy and brought it up that I would like you to coach me. What's your reaction hearing that Novak was the driving force behind that?
Well, Novak has always been an innovator. He brought in Agassi at one point. He brought in Becker. He brought Ivanisevic after the Ivanisevic good stint with Cilic, but he wasn't known as a coach. And I think Novak is one of those students of the game, and no one it's a closer student of the game than Sir Andy. So I think it's just a great choice. I'm just surprised Andy was let out of the house so quick. But I'm
Yeah.
glad. It's good for tennis. I think it's going to be a matter of enjoyment for a lot of people. I want to see what Andy feels being in that box after he berated his box for all of his
Yeah.
career. That's something they do have in common. So I think Novak will be a little calmer.
Yeah.
That could serve him right. And remember, when Andy worked with Lendl, that the respect he had for Lendl, more than any tactics or an individual shot, I think Andy just being within himself a lot more and not being so irate every other point. I think that helped him a lot, and it went a long way in everything that he accomplished in the Lendl tenure on the Murray camp. So I think maybe Djokovic is looking for a little bit of that from someone that he utterly respects, and because he has achieved so much. And there are very, very few people that have achieved as much as Andy Murray has in our sport.
Yeah, there's a joke in there somewhere that he, said he never, when he tweeted out after the Olympics, I never really liked tennis anyway, and he retired, and then he spends a couple months in the house. He's like, all right, I'm ready to coach again. But no, the respect thing is huge, and I completely agree with that. Like Novak is a graceful champion, obviously, but there are very few people, if anyone, that can really relate to the big time matches, what he's going through, being at the top, being chased, being knocked off the mantle. Andy Murray can. He battled him so many times. I think 36 matches in total. So, yeah, there's a respect factor there. I like the tactical side that Andy always brought to tennis too. So I'm intrigued to see how this is going to work. And the last thing I'll say, Nico, is the fact that Novak was driving this shows what he said. And he admitted in his quote, like, I'm still in it to win it. I'm going to play more tennis. This isn't a retirement tour. I'm not bowing out gracefully. No. He's going to give his best punch to try to win another major next year.
Well, I think that message was loud and clear. So it's one of the top 3 discussion points going into the Australian Open for sure. So there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that one.
Certainly is. And you mentioned his name. There was another big coaching news that went under the radar, and it was Hubert Hurkacz is going to work with the tandem. And I didn't have this tandem written down on my bingo sheet, but Nicolas Massou, who did great work with Dominic Thiem, brought him up to the heights of tennis himself, and Ivan Lendl. So Lendl Massou coaching Hubert Hurkacz. I was taken aback by this, but any excuse to get Lendl back into the coaching ranks is good by my book. But what do you say to this new coaching hire?
I mean, talk about something from left field, because yes, we have the Chilean connection there, but in the sense that Massou has been very actively looking for a top guy to coach. I think he's a really, really good coach. Anybody would want him in the corner. And Hurkacz is one of those guys that he knows he's a wink away from contending for majors. And it's just him sending a message to the locker room. Listen, I'm going to go all out. I don't think Massou is ready to travel all year. Same thing with Lendl. I doubt we'll see them both in the same week. That would be like seeing Superman and Clark Kent. But you never know. It's going to be good. It's great to have Ivan around. He brings a lot to the game, one of the best ever. And I hope Hugh can benefit. That he's one of the best servers on tour, if not the best, together with Zverev. The backhand is a no miss, not a huge weapon, but the forehand it blinks at times, and especially on the clay. And I think Ivan had one of the biggest forehand weapons ever. So off we go. Let's work on that and get incisive on it. And we know how far Hubie has come physically. He's become quite an athlete, and I'm glad to see hard work pay off.
Yeah, Lendl's not getting off the couch to coach just anybody. So he sees something in Hubie, which is good. And I want to also remind everybody out there, Nico coined one of the best phrases on this podcast years ago when you talked about, I think it was Escobar. I'm trying to remember who it was, but said one of your friends was playing and he was getting the full Lendl treatment, losing a very drawn out match. So I thought that was a good one. Moving,
he was a rough. People forgot.
Yeah. It wasn't like because you're playing him, he's an all-time great player, but it's also not a fun way to lose. It's very drawn out, it's methodical, it's death by 1,000 cuts, right?
And you won't even get a smile.
Not even a reaction. Well, before we wind this one down, I also want to give a shout out. I don't know what's in the water in the off season, but the ATP is quickly it's become engagement season, Nico. We got 3 of them: Casper Ruud, Popper, and Felix, just one after the other. So, congrats to those 3 men and their significant others.
Well, it's the season. It's a season when they have a little time to wind down. The focus is tremendous year round. I think they have a little more time to reminisce, to think, to get perspective on their personal
Yeah,
life, and also, the companions. They are sacrificing a lot, traveling the world, and it's not easy.
yeah, uh-huh,
Taking care of somebody that is very needy, as much as a tennis player is. So I guess it's reward season
yeah.
in a way,
It is.
and I wish them the best.
I certainly do. And I also want to mention, too, before we get to the final meeting of this convo, Nico, tennis did lose a pioneer today. Neale Fraser, Australian legend, died at the age of 91. What a career in the game. The 1984 Hall of Fame class inductee, 19 total majors won. Also, maybe made his biggest mark being the Davis Cup captain for Australia for 24 years. Just a real true statesman of tennis, and someone that made it their life's work. It didn't end when he finished his legendary playing career. He kept it going and made an indelible mark in the sport.
I had the chance to meet him a few times, and I am a big admirer of the tradition that Aussies have in our sport, and nobody embody it better than Fraser. He was a gentleman through and through, very serious
Yeah,
guy, all about the business, and he was, one of the pillars of that Aussie tradition, which we all admire so much. If there's something I envy from them is that having all those guys stay involved in the game.
yeah,
He was certainly one of the great ones. We saw the outpouring of messages when he
yeah,
passed. He had been out of the limelight for the past few years, but he's a member of the tennis family, and yes, he's cherished in Australia. But believe me that those of us that respect the tradition are also adding our grief to the departure of a guy that he had a great life. I mean, 91. I'll
yeah,
sign it tomorrow on the way he lived it. So. Safe travels to
yeah.
him, and my condolences to the family. But those kind of people, I celebrate. I
Yeah.
don't cry them because they don't deserve it.
Yeah, it's a full 18 holes, as one metaphor I heard growing up. You lived a great life, got to golf every hole, so to speak. So, Mr. Fraser, RIP to him. And winding this down, Nico Pereira, you're in the business now. I kind of introduced you to podcasts, and you got hooked. It's Mexican Tennis, right? That's the feed. That's the show you host. Spanish language show, of course, obviously. And there's just a lot of good content. I was following along as best I could, not really knowing the language, but Carlos Moya was on there. You get great access, great topics. And with all the boom and stuff happening in Latin America, with Spain, obviously, Nadal and Moya and everything, it's been an exciting time. But what's it been like for you, Nico, hosting your very own podcast?
Well, it's great. I cherish the opportunity that Mex Tennis is giving me. They are the
Yeah,
biggest
yeah,
company in tennis in Mexico. They own the Acapulco and the Los Cabos event, among with other challengers and some ladies at 175. So they came to me with the idea of promoting tennis in Latin America, which is my passion.
yeah,
I'm a member of the Latin American Hall of Fame with the Rosie Casals, the International Hall of Fame, the ATP player
yeah,
player council. So anything I can do to promote the game, uh, it's good for me. I've had the bad fortune or the misfortune that in Venezuela, the country is, it's under a malicious regime, and there's not much I can do for my people, but I can do for Latin America, and
yeah,
they gave me an opportunity
yeah,
to express my ideas and share
yeah,
my tennis stories and my tennis contacts with
yeah.
the Mexican and the Latin American and the Latin, as you mentioned, Spanish crowd, and something that I welcome. I had a radio show like 20 years ago, and it was one of the things that I enjoyed the most. So it's right up the line with that, but I've certainly taken a few tips from you, my friend.
Okay. Well, no, I really think it's awesome work that you're getting to do this and grow the game. And it's funny, last week I was lucky enough to have on this show Alejandro Tabilo.
Okay.
What a nice young man too.
Yeah.
But he talked about how important it is being, having the Chilean origin, those events, the golden swing. It means so much, and seeing pros come through can inspire the next crop of superstars. So anything you can do to grow the game and grow interest, you never know who you might be inspiring to pick up a racket and make their name.
It's just getting tougher and tougher in Latin America because of the economical differences and the difficulties in playing when you don't have as many events as other countries. So we do what we can, and we don't have such a big tradition as the Aussies, but we keep rowing. We're rowing upstream, but we stick together. We're a good fraternity of people,
Yeah.
and we do what we can for each other, especially for those youngsters that are new to the game. And that's where I'm headed right now. I'm headed to a clinic to
Yeah.
talk to youngsters with not many resources about their dreams and about how can
Yeah.
tennis be a vehicle for them to achieve them, and not necessarily by being a champion, but to being a champion in life. That ultimately is the most important thing.
Always keeping your service up. It's very admirable. Nico Pereira, we're on to 2025. A lot of great, exciting storylines. And can't wait to see you back at the Tennis Channel studios, calling some matches, gearing us up for what's in store. It's been a crazy ride, but always a blast, my friend. Thanks for coming on the podcast. We'll have to do this again soon.
Thank you, Mitch, and a great hello to all your audience. Great job you're doing there. Thank you for all the tips, and thank you for having me. Happy holidays to everyone.
Happy holidays. Thanks, Nico.
Take care.